Hi, I'm Snesmes, and I've survived a year of YouTube.
Rest assured, dear viewers, we here at the Daily Bugle will not rest until we've uncovered the behind web of lies.
Is that really what I sounded like? Gross. It has been 2 years now since I started this channel, and I can't help but feel a little bit reflective. I mean, it's December, everyone's feeling a little bit more introspective as the year winds down, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to not only reflect on what I've learned over the past year in terms of YouTube and my personal life, but also revisit the conclusions I drew from last year and how they shaped my mindset going into this one. For some context, I am 17, which means I'm at the age where I think I know everything, but I really don't. But despite my lack of worldly knowledge, I've always considered myself to be a deeply introspective person. I tend to spend a lot of time thinking about who I am, who I used to be, and what kind of person I strive to be. So, needless to say, self-introspection is right up my alley. A little too close to my alley, if you ask me. Get it away from me. In fact, I'd say that this video is a perfect example of my growth. I mean, just comparing it to last year's will probably yield some fascinating comparisons. The way I present myself and the way I approach my work, it's all changed, right? And I think that's one of the coolest things about YouTube. It's always been extremely interesting to me as a creative outlet because it allows you to see your growth in so many unique ways. For one, your presentation will improve, not just in terms of like visual aesthetics, but also in how you communicate. You learn to enunciate better, to find balance in pacing thoughts and ideas, and to adjust your tone to fit the message you're trying to convey. On top of this, your writing will improve. Maybe this is just me, but when I look back at the scripts I've written in the past, it becomes very evident to me just how much I've grown. But at least to me, the biggest improvement I've made since I've started making videos is that I've become a lot more confident. And this confidence doesn't just show in my videos, it's something I carry with me into my daily life. I used to be so embarrassed to show my channel off to others, dude, but now I'm not afraid to show. You should subscribe, by the way. Now, in terms of numbers, it may not seem like I've made much progress this year. I've only managed to upload like, what, 8 videos? Compared to last year's technically 35. Look, I privated a lot of them. There are 16 that are still up. The actual problem arises, though, when I convince myself that I'm capable of producing content at a much faster pace, which I'm obviously not doing. so what happened? Like why am I not uploading as much as I thought I would? Why am I struggling to find the same energy I once had? Those are the big questions I've been pondering recently, and today they're exactly what we'll be going to answer. We'll take a look at how the videos I've made this year have impacted my priorities, how the drastic shift in my method of editing affected the quality of my work, and finally, we'll touch on a few comments all of you wonderful people have left and elaborate a bit more on a few points I've made in my videos this year. All hopefully before Arbor Day. The original script said before Christmas. That did not end up working out. Hi, my name is River, you're watching Snesmes, and I've survived 2 years of YouTube. So I'm gonna start out by answering this question very straightforward. There is a concrete, logical answer to why I uploaded less videos this year, but I also feel there's something a bit more psychological going down, so we'll also be looking at that. But a lot has changed in terms of where I'm at with video making. For starters, the length of my videos has increased considerably, which on the surface seems like a natural progression, right? As I have more things to say, the videos become longer. I'm delving deeper into topics, providing a lot more context to what I'm talking about, and kind of exploring ideas a little bit more thoroughly. But with that increased length comes, a side effect. The workload also grows significantly. There's more research, more editing, more revisions. It all kind of just piles up, and as a result, there are just simply fewer videos. One thing I've quickly learned is that video length and time spent editing are not linear, they're exponential. At first, I thought that the more I focused on each individual video, the more refined and efficient my process would become, but that is not the case. I found that for each minute added to a video, the time required to kind of create and perfect it grows at a much faster rate. What this means is that with each new project, I'm spending even more time at my desk just to get everything to look how I want it to. And if there's one thing I struggle with the most, it's consistency. Keeping up that momentum and staying in the groove. It's a challenge for me. As videos take longer and longer to produce, the time I need to fixate on a single project stretches out quite considerably. What used to be a matter of days has now become a matter of weeks, and with that extended focus, there's been a drastic shift in how I approach my work. It's become harder to maintain the same level of excitement and energy throughout the process because it's so dragged out. That constant nagging feeling of being stuck in a loop, focused on one goal for too long, it starts to drain me, so the cycle kind of repeats itself. Even fewer videos, more work, less consistency. But it's not just the consistency that I've struggled with this year. As I mentioned before, it's something a little bit more psychological. It's something I never expected myself to deal with, and as the year wore on, I found myself dealing with challenges I never really anticipated. Not only like personal hurdles that will remain off this channel, there were a variety of creative blocks and moments of self-doubt that hit me really hard, harder than I can usually ignore. And one thing just piled on after the last, and before I knew it, I was confronting like a whole new set of obstacles, nothing I'd prepared for. But I feel this kind of pile up brought about a good change in me. It kind of forced me to reevaluate how I was balancing my work, my life, and my expectations of myself. But one thing after the other, let's talk about the videos I posted this year. Or one of the videos. You'll see what I mean. The first notable video I uploaded this year was Persona 5 is exactly what modern gaming needs. I had worked somewhere around 2 weeks on it, the longest I had ever spent on a single project up to this point in time. And you know, I considered it to be the best thing I'd ever produced up until that point. Hindsight 2020, this thing it's far from perfect. Probably the furthest thing from being perfect. At the time, I felt I had properly stated all of my thoughts on the game, and that there really was no room to expand or develop my ideas, but you know, it didn't take too long after the video released for me to have a comprehensive list of things I wish I had changed and things I wish I had said differently. This almost always seems to happen after I post a video, but this time around it was the worst it had ever been. And it's still, up to this point, it was the worst it had ever been. This video kind of showed me two important things that would go on to drastically affect my approach to video making. Number one, hard work pays off. Up to this point, this was the one video that I spent the most time on. It was the first video I did any sort of research for. The video's performance demonstrated that putting in all of that time and effort was worth it. Apparently, making better videos means more people will be willing to watch them. Who could have known? And number two, I need to let my videos sit in my mind for a while. Due to the nature of, brain, I need ample time in order to kind of set my priorities in order. You know, what exactly is it that I want a video to be about? How will I go about conveying that message? To what extent do I need to research? All that fun stuff. If I finish a video without putting mountains of thought into it, I won't be satisfied with the results. It's what happened with the Persona 5 video, and it's something I felt needed changed. Now, despite how straightforward all of that sounded, I still somehow managed to learn all of the wrong lessons from this whole experience. All because of one important factor: the amount of attention it got. This video did numbers for my channel. Numbers. Loads of them, okay? Numbers up the wazoo and down the wazoo if you ask him nicely. Reaching a staggering 20,000, okay? Which, you know, was a monumental achievement for my channel, right? I only had like, what, 200 subs when I posted it, and by the beginning of April, I already had 600, single-handedly tripling what I had before, you know? I feel it's sort of easy to understate this, but this video alone had more views than everything I had made on my channel previously combined. If I could do all of this with just a half-baked, preconceptual pile of disorganized thoughts, imagine what I could do if I put in all of my effort. And so I went about planning my most elaborate and overinflated project as of yet. A video set on targeting the themes of change in Persona 5's direct sequel, Persona 5 Strikers. I had already decided I wanted to massively outdo my Persona 5 video. You know, I wanted a full comprehensive breakdown of the game's story and central themes. I wanted to cover the combat system and provide critical analysis on how the game itself was designed. And I wanted to delve into how all of this impacted Atlus's approach to game development, showing clear trends of where the company was headed in terms of management and market strategy. Can you see where I went wrong? Looking back, it is oh so clear that I set myself up for failure. The scale of what I was attempting was just way too much for me to handle, especially considering the resources I had at the time. I hadn't bought my PC yet, so I was working with a laptop with only like 5 gigs of free space. For some context, my Persona 5 video was around 4 gigs in size. So unless I somehow managed to condense all of that into a 20-minute video, it wasn't even a possibility to begin with. But despite all of these impossible hurdles, I tried, for better or for worse. I dove in with the same enthusiasm I'd had for any of my past projects, determined to make this one the one. 30 hours later, I had managed to write 9 pages of the script. 9 pages, which in hindsight were probably just dumb luck. Somewhere along the way, however, the initial excitement I had for the project sputtered out. The novelty had worn off, and the ambition I had once felt turned into a burden, one I needed to avoid. Every time I attempted to return to the project, I felt paralyzed. You know, I had convinced myself that this was the only way to finish the video. The sheer amount of work I had laid out in front of me was it was suffocating. You know, I couldn't even begin to tackle it because each time I tried, I saw an impossible mountain that I'd built for myself, one that I had made even higher with my own ambition. I had set the goalpost farther than what was realistically reachable, and because of that, I walked away. You know, I had to. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and I kept telling myself that I'll get back to it tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. Each day felt like I was one step further from finishing, and over time, the weight of my unfinished work grew heavier. What started as a passion project turned into an emotional drain, one which sucked down every joy I once held for the hobby. And the worst part? I blamed myself for it, for not being able to handle the enormity of what I had taken on. I tortured myself with the thought that I had somehow failed, that I wasn't disciplined or capable enough to push through. You know, I kept telling myself that if I just worked harder, if I just tried a little longer, I could make it work. But deep down, I knew I was punishing myself for a project that was always beyond my reach. Because the truth is, I never gave myself permission to fail. I never allowed myself to readjust my goals. Instead, I let the guilt churn and linger, all for something I never should have expected to finish in the first place. It wasn't until I looked back at my Persona 5 video with a fresh pair of eyes that were no longer clouded by the expectations I once held for myself, that I was able to really get the ball rolling. I had been so focused on this perfected silhouette of a video, on this enormous all-encompassing idea, that I had completely lost sight of the message I truly wanted to convey. I'd let the complexity of the project cloud the core reason I started in the first place. But when I allowed myself to step back and view my work from a different perspective, something inside of me clicked. There was a message hidden in Strikers, a message I felt worthy of suffering through. And once I recognized that, the feeling of being lost and overwhelmed slowly began to dissolve, and I was finally able to take my first creative breath in this new mindset. That's when it all changed. The very first thing I did once I came back to the project was to tear everything down. I knew that in order to move forward, I needed to destroy what I'd previously created. Not in a destructive sense, but in a way that allowed me to clear the clutter from my mind, to reset and start fresh. You know, I needed the space to think, to breathe, to focus. And I realized that for the project to work, I needed to set the table for it. Once the space was clear, I laid out a map of my priorities, you know, what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. I made a list of the key ideas and cut out anything that would be too distracting or unnecessary. I had spent way too much time getting tangled in the minutiae before, and it had been paralyzing. Now I was determined to focus on only the core aspects, the things that truly mattered, and in order to do that, I needed to let go of anything that didn't serve the vision. Finally, I wrote down an outline. Something simple, but clear, you know, and I gave myself a deadline. October 15th. And you know what? It worked. It totally worked. I managed to get the video out on time, dude. That nagging feeling pressuring me in the back of my mind for months was finally gone. And I had come out of the whole experience with a fresh pair of eyes. It was such a relief to cross that line, knowing that I had put in months and months of effort and it had been done right this time. Looking back, I realized that by setting a very clear vision for the project, you know, laying out the necessary steps and focusing only on what mattered, I had managed to eliminate that paralyzing feeling. That impossible mountain was no longer a massive wall in front of me. It had become a staircase, a series of manageable steps, and surprisingly, by narrowing down the scope and being more deliberate, I not only eased the weight on my shoulders, but the video was more cohesive, with just as much focus and clarity as I could have wished for. That moment when everything finally clicked was, without a doubt, one of the biggest turning points I've ever experienced in a creative medium. You know, it was never just about finishing a video, it was about understanding the right ways to approach a project. It took the right set of factors, the right perspective, the right mindset, and a sizable amount of determination to get it done. But I feel most importantly, it taught me how crucial it is to know when to scale back and when to simplify. Which kind of brings us to how all of this is even possible in the first place. So I edit my videos using DaVinci Resolve. You know, it's a professional grade program that offers like all the features you'd expect from something like Premiere Pro, yet it's completely free. You know, it's fast, it's efficient. I'm not sure why it asks for your binary identification plate before you download it, but I always felt like I was learning something new every time I edited a video. And on top of all that, it was able to handle the sort of videos I wanted to make, which isn't something I could say about Clipchamp. Now, I've already spoken on my opinion of Clipchamp in my previous end of the year video, but I don't think I properly explained how tedious my process of creating videos used to be. So I used to edit on a 2014 Samsung Chromebook, which infamously doesn't have the greatest specs in the world. There was absolutely no way I was getting OBS to run on that thing, which meant there was really no other way of recording gameplay than the Switch's capture function. For those of you who don't know, if you hold down a button on the Switch, you can record the last 30 seconds of gameplay. And that's how I did it. I'd start by capturing the gameplay, then I would have to download them using my phone by scanning the QR code and then email them to myself, which was so fun because Gmail has file size attachment limits, and that was just the best thing to get around. It was one video per email, dude. It was sucked. And then I'd download them using my Chromebook, of course, you know. And then after all that, I'd throw them into Clipchamp's award-winning timeline, which is not laggy or terrible at all. But, you know, I was missing audio still, so I'd have to record voiceovers as if I was playing the game live using a website because Clipchamp didn't have any built-in ways of recording audio at the time, with a shitty microphone whilst having absolutely no control over its EQ, dude. What? The process of transferring videos was incredibly tedious. It could take over a minute just to send a single clip from my Switch to my laptop, which might not sound like much, but with a 10-minute video requiring like 50 to 60 clips on average, most of which would be cut out, things added up rather quickly. And with all the back and forth emails and file transfers, dude, it was so easy to lose a few clips along the way. Oh, and let's not forget I was still using a Chromebook. A Chromebook with a 12 gig hard drive, 7 of which were taken up by the system itself. So unless I wanted to play Russian roulette with Windows System 32, I had to clear out all of the assets from my previous video just to make room for the next one. It also doesn't help that I had apparently installed American Truck Sim using Linux, which don't know how long that had been there. Oops. It's very clear that owning a PC opens up the door to so much more. I mean, there was absolutely no way I was making the Persona 5 Strikers video using Clipchamp. I mean, literally, not only was the file size much bigger than the 5 gigs I had available to me, but there's also a bug that like gradually desynced the audio track. I actually had to install a different editing software just to manually align the parts where the audio was out of sync. I am so much more privileged now that I have a decently powerful PC with the ability to run almost any program I throw at it. The equipment I've obtained over the course of this year really speaks to my priorities and what I considered to be growth. Not only do I have the proper microphone and recording equipment to boot, but I also have all of the resources I need to create any type of video I want. But despite all of this, I kind of miss it. You know, I miss it when I would pile up all of my pillows and blankets in the corner just to record. You know, I miss it when I really had to consider what I spent my time on because it took so much effort to set everything up. I miss it when I labored to even bring anything to the table because the feedback I received, it felt so much more earned. I miss the challenge of it all. When I had limited resources and faced constant roadblocks in my video making process, I was sort of forced to think outside of the box. You know, the constraints of working with outdated equipment made every video a challenge I would enthusiastically climb. And as a result, I had to approach making videos with a level of ingenuity I really no longer tap into. Blame it on the abundance of equipment, blame it on a refined process or better knowledge of what to expect, but that abundance has, ironically, made me less creative. I don't have to struggle with the same problem, so there's less of a push to innovate. There's less of a push to drive me forward. There's no longer that feeling of challenge, or if there is, and that most likely is the case, I no longer retain the same readiness to approach it as I once did. Even though I claim to adore the same challenges I fought with, I avoid them with every opportunity. How can I claim to have grown if I refuse the very thing that lets me? So we're right back where we started. It's funny, you know, I really thought this was going to be a question I'd be able to get to the bottom of, but the more I think about it, the more I realize that there isn't really a single definitive answer. Video making and, more broadly, creative expression are very personal endeavors, you know, and they're influenced by so many different factors. My interests, my time, my mood, my goals. Video making itself is a hobby, so I naturally kind of get in and out of it every now and again. So, you know, maybe it's not so much about finding the answer as it is about learning to balance these aspects of myself. Technically speaking, I posted 35 videos last year. Now, most of them are privated and they aren't exactly the sort of thing I would stand by today, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that I can look at those videos and see how far I've come is proof enough of my growth as a creator and as a person. Those older videos, they were a part of my learning process, even if they're not the greatest thing ever constructed by mortal hands. What I've realized over the course of this year specifically is that I'm not willing to create for the sake of creating, which has just as many negatives as it does positives, more negatives, I would say. But I'm not interested in throwing out content just to like hit a quota or fill a schedule. If I'm going to make something, it needs to matter to me, and hopefully to the people watching as well. I want my videos to have substance, to say something worth saying, and to present those ideas with the right context to properly resonate. That kind of intention takes time, and I'm okay with that. Not to mention I'm going into college very, very soon, and this is not my job. It's something I love, yes, but it can't take precedence over the bigger priorities in my life. That doesn't mean I'm stepping away from it, but it does mean that I have to accept the pace at which I am able to work and create. All of this to say, I'm sorry. Yeah, it's funny, you know, the only person I feel the need to apologize to is myself for not living up to this impossible standard I've set, for the supposed mess I've gotten myself into, and I seem to be pretty good at doing that. But you know, maybe that's the point. Maybe part of this whole journey, kind of feels gross to call it that, is about learning to let go of those self-imposed expectations and just allow myself to grow, to experiment without guilt, to find a rhythm at which to create, to allow time to pass through me. So, here's to embracing the process, however messy or snessy it may be. Here's to moving forward, not with a perfect plan, but with the confidence that growth is always happening, even when it doesn't feel like it. So that's the video. Leave if you'd like, but I'm going to touch on a few questions and comments you guys have had this year, just to wrap everything up in a nice little bow. Spiffy Eater says, I have 2 questions. Firstly, why did you start YouTube? Was it a spur of the moment thing, or is it going towards a bigger goal? Or why do you personally like what? Oh, hold on. Or what do you personally like about games, and which one is your favorite overall? Well, to answer that first question, yeah, I mean, the act of starting YouTube was a spur of the moment thing, but the desire to make videos, that was something that had kind of come with time. You know, the very first experience I've had with video making, it was when I was like 5 or 6 or something. I was making Lego stop motions. That's kind of how I got started. Now, I never grew up with YouTube, weirdly enough. You know, I was never really allowed to watch it until freshman year. I had surgery and I couldn't really move around too much, so I asked my mom to watch YouTube on the television we had out in the living room, and lo and behold, it became an addiction. I just never stopped. And it was seeing all these people do amazing things that I really wanted to be a part of that, you know? So I made it my goal to, as any like 13-year-old does, I wanted to become a YouTuber, right? And that goal has definitely died as of now. I don't, it's not that I don't think I can do it. I don't want it to be my primary source of income. I had like always wanted to, and for the longest time I was unable to because my mom wouldn't let me. But then I sneakily started one on my own and didn't tell her, so. And I still didn't tell her until I posted the, Persona 5 video, and it got like a lot of views, and I was like, Mom, I need to share this with you. And my favorite game, it's hard to answer because I've already talked about Persona 5 and Persona 5 Strikers. I would actually consider Persona 5 Strikers to be better than Persona 5, but my favorite game overall is Majora's Mask. It's the game I have the most nostalgia for. It's the game that I have the most feelings for. It's the game I felt the most while playing and while not playing. It's just such a special game, and I really want to do it justice, but that's going to take a lot of resources. That is something I want to do, but it's not something that is currently in my to-do list. You know what I mean? Mio says, what is the most single specific detail you remember about any of your videos? Dude, this is a hard one, because I know I've noticed things that are super small. Oh, this might not be what exactly you're looking for, but I was recording Zelda's Kingdomy Tears like a year ago, and while I was recording, there was a house fire across the street. Literally my neighbors across the street. Their house was on fire, bro. It was so funny. So that might not be exactly what you were looking for, but that is arguably the funniest thing. What's been your least favorite video, says Alex. That's a real kicker, because for the most part, I don't really care for my videos. Not like I hate them, I just don't think they're the best thing in the world. I remember the one video I was like, oh, this is gonna do so well, this is gonna do amazing, people are gonna love this, was the Becoming God Jr. in Terraria 1.4. At the time, I just thought that was like the funniest title to ever grace the presence of the universe. You know, Becoming God Jr., dude? What the heck? God Jr.? But no, it did not. It did not do very well. And I honestly thought the 3 things I learned from a year of making YouTube video, like the last year's one, I thought that would do so much better than it actually did. And, you know, I understand why that is the case now, looking back at the quality of that video. Those are some videos I'm disappointed with, or at least disappointed with the outcome. This name says, how do you plan to grow your channel? Do you want to grow your channel? What other content will we be seeing in the coming year? So I mean, I feel everyone wants to grow their channel. How I plan to do that is I want to do more kind of retrospectives like this. Maybe not retrospectives, that's not the right word for it. I want to do, and I don't want to call them video essays. Most of my videos, I want to have a feeling coming out of them where you feel introspective, or at least you feel like, wow, that's kind of nice, or that was kind of neat, I'm glad I watched it. Something I realized is that the middle of the video really doesn't matter, because if you get hooked in the beginning, you're probably going to stay around by the middle if the video maker doesn't screw up. And then if you leave them off with something at the end, something they can take into their daily lives, they're going to enjoy that. They're going to be like, wow, I learned something. I actually benefited as a person from this video. I want to watch more of that. That's the kind of feeling I want to leave when I post a video. You know, I want people to come out of the video feeling like they benefited from it. More so than just like, this was entertaining. What other content will we see in the coming year? So there's the Minecraft beta video where I talk about how Minecraft beta kind of taught me to replay or to play Minecraft correctly, and how that kind of, there's something with the end poem in there, a deeper exploration of philosophy in perspective. I really want to touch on that, but I might have to scale it down. And then this was like the last thing for this year. I mean, I really only have the Minecraft beta video. There are probably some other bigger projects on the horizon. I want to do one where I talk about my experience in high school and what kind of like my mindset during graduation, you know what I mean? I want to reflect on that later in my life and be like, whoa, this is what I thought? That's crazy. I was so stupid then. That's all, honestly. I'm glad you guys stuck around. I hope you guys took something out of this video. I have been recording for literally an hour right as of now. Jesus Christ. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care.